Hi everyone, welcome to the Stars and Startups podcast. I'm your friendly host, Varun Vermidi. Over the last few weeks, I've spoken to a lot of different founders, mostly around technology, about business, about a lot of different things. Today, in India, we see a lot of interesting business models being created, experimented with. On this episode, we explore the launch of X1 Racing League and Ultimate E with Abhinandan Balasubramanian. Yep, he does have a long name. He has teamed up with two young racing drivers, Aditya Patel and Arman Ibrahim, to launch the league that is not only venture backed but has some very high profile angels and family offices. In its first edition, the league saw participation from international drivers, including names like former Formula One champion Niki Lauda's son, Matthias, and Formula One winner James Hunt's son, Freddie. In a world where we're seeing esports gain popularity and leagues like the IPL and Kabaddi League breaking some records, we're witnessing an uptake of new forms of entertainment. Let's learn more from the young sports league entrepreneur. Hey guys, today we have Abhinandan with us, currently one of the co-founders of X1. Uh, Abhinandan has had a very interesting journey. He was earlier the founder of Futsal. I don't know if a lot of you guys know about it, but it's a football. It's a truncated version of football, which we'll ask him more about. He's been doing startups since he left college. So we're going to be talking some very interesting things with Abhi, and let's say hi. Hey Abhinandan, how are you doing?
Hi, Varun. All good. How's it going with you?
Fantastic, man. So, I know that X1 is all about fast cars and sports. How is the current lockdown treating you?
Um, we thought it would have a massive impact on the business, but two factors have contributed to it having a very minimal effect. One is our calendar is not in these months, so there is no direct impact of COVID on the business itself. Whereas every big major event in the world, like the Wimbledon, the IPL, all of them had to sort of reschedule or cancel or whatever. So that is one factor which has helped us not be directly impacted by it. But the second thing is we obviously have a very, very good set of team owners, franchise owners in the league. And we had a collective call once all of this started, and they were very, very surprisingly, they were all extremely kicked about com- for sure doing it this year. Right? Our thing was, okay, what are the factors which will, imply that we cannot do it this year? And all of them were like, doesn't matter. Let's do it this year. Let's show how strong we are as a group, because that will put us in the top three or four leagues in the country right away. Just showing the overall sort of strength of us as a collective, and that was a
What
very interesting development for
what
us.
what is it that you're going to do this year? Because I would imagine. Actually, why don't you tell our audience what X1 is?
Yeah. So X1's a X1's a sports media business. We started off as a motorsports league, and but today with a lot of developments over our journey in the last 2 years, we're a sports media business. We create sports IPs. When I say IPs, you the most common ones that everyone knows of are the IPL and the Pro Kabaddi, for instance. But we are very specifically focused in alternative sports. So we launched with motorsports. We've added esports into it. We've got a bunch of other sports that we are looking at into entering very soon in the near future. And last year was the year we launched the business, and we launched off with the X1 Racing League, which is essentially the IPL of motorsports. So we have racing teams with men and women professional racing drivers, both from India and overseas, and team owners, and very interesting formats, very quick formats. So it's not like the Formula One where you have a race that extends for about 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Our races are all 30 minutes long, and you have a very interesting driver change format. So the cars come in between the 12th and 18th minute into the pits, and the driver driving the car jumps out, and the next driver gets into the car. So it's a lot of drama, a lot of chaos,
Interesting.
very fun and interesting way to do racing. And all the cars are the same. So what that means is it's purely down to the driver's ability. and it makes it an equal footing for everyone. So we have the best female drivers in the world competing in X1 Racing League, which we're very proud of. Given that we made that gender neutrality very mainstream, where they compete against the ex Formula One drivers, the Indian drivers, the kids from India who get a platform to compete against the best in the world. So that's the X1 Racing League.
So tell me something. So the league itself is that like I mean, Formula One of course has multiple race courses across the world, and they go every 2 weeks. They go to a new country, new course, new
Yeah.
venue to race. What's does it have the same format?
So in India, there are two racetracks right now. There's the Budh in Delhi, Noida, and the MMRT in Chennai. So last year we did our races at both the venues. We had close to 45,000 spectators that attended the races over the 2 weekends, which was great because people didn't know that that crowd turns up for a racing event if it's not Formula One. And that was great. And also right now there are about 3 racetracks being built in India. In the south of India, there are 2 tracks being built, and in Mumbai, there's 1 track being built. So by the next 2 years, we'll have 5 racing circuits in India, which are all like Formula 2 graded at least, and that means that there's the basic infrastructure which allows for us to develop the sport at a grassroots level as well.
You talked about world-renowned drivers. The format for an IPL team is, of course, you buy the franchise to have players, which is in this case drivers, and
That's
then you basically find the optimum driver unit to partake in that race.
Yep.
Does it work the same way?
Pretty much. The only difference is our financial model is very different from other sports leagues in the country. We've gone with a sort of an NBA model, right, where it's capped expenses, meaning the teams have a certain budget that they spend every year. With drivers, with operations, everything put together, there's a certain cap beyond which they cannot go. And that is paid to us directly. So they can't even sort of, overpay without us knowing. And on the driver front, there's no auction. There's just a draft. Again, like the NBA. So there are 5 categories of drivers. There's the international male, the international female, the Indian international. So guys from India who've been driving internationally for over 5 years. Then there is the national champions, and then the domestic drivers, which is the young drivers. So in each category, there are about anywhere between 8 to 12 drivers that are put in the draft, and the teams get to select. So there's no disparity in the quality. You have Formula 2 drivers like Arjun Maini, along with guys like Narayan Karthikeyan in the Indian international slot. You have guys like Tonio Liuzzi and Mitchell Gilbert and Oliver James Webb in the international male driver slot. So each of them brings their own value to the table, whereas Tonio has driven at Formula 1, which someone like Oliver is one of the biggest influences in motorsports today in the world. So we've balanced it out for teams, and each team goes with their specific strategy. And we saw a great draft last year. There was a lot of confusion initially because the team owners had to get adjusted to how they play this whole thing out in the draft. And also, given that some of them, given that Narayan also happens to be a team owner in the league, it made for some interesting conversations in the drafting room.
So, we ran a small draft for some of the leagues that I play with. Right, I'm talking about different sport, and every time you have a draft, you obviously have different rules. There's a process of understanding how the rules work, and then you obviously then optimize in that. You want to be fair to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it, it's not an auction; it's a draft. Does it mean they just pick lots, or they have a strategy saying, okay, I know who I want? Because I mean, you can still have a draft and still have points, which work like an auction, but you can't exhaust your points. So then you need to have the smartest option, so that you have in the international category, you can get the best driver, and say the Indian male category, you may not get. You probably have to go with somebody who may not get outbid by somebody else, right?
Yeah. So
Was it similar?
it's based on lots actually. So each round, so the international male, there'll be a pick of lots, and the teams go in that format, in that how they've been picked. And then the next, which is the international females, again there'll be a pick of lots. And then again for the Indian international driver. But obviously we had to tweak a little bit, given that Narayan was also a team owner. Narayan's a team owner in the league, so we had to tweak that Indian international category a little bit, because people didn't want Narayan to get the first pick on the Indian international, given that he himself is going to be driving for the team. So that there was a little bit of a strategy change in that round, but otherwise it was straightforward pick of lots. I think everyone was very happy at the end of it, because everyone had their, in the 5 drivers that they've had, each of them had at least 2 of them who were their second draft picks. So which means that it was fairly organized, at least from our end, because it was the first time we were doing it.
No, that's pretty interesting, because I was looking at the team owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting lot. A
Yeah.
lot of them also have stakes in other franchises.
Mm-hmm.
How did that kind of play out? Like, did they have a strategy saying, because I mean, if you look at the Chennai Super Kings, they've been running sports teams forever.
Yeah.
Right. India Cements has had
Cricket,
other cricket,
the local cricket team,
right?
yeah.
So I've always read that they're probably one of the best team owners, because they came with the mindset of knowing how to build a team.
Yeah.
Did you see the same thing happen here?
I think what you see amongst our team owners is a very passionate group of people. They all understand motorsports. They all love motorsports. So I think that sort of is the crux of all of their interest in buying the franchises in the X1 Racing League. Some of them, for instance, are building race circuits as well in different cities in the country, which means that it's not just a play thing. They're also seeing a grassroots program to this and a long-time infrastructure play here. And there's been a lot of, so for instance, our Bangalore team owner, it's a consortium owned by a woman named Naina Parekh. And interestingly, Naina went to Harvard with Formula E champion Lucas Di Grassi. So very, very interesting coincidence. Given that she had a Formula E champion as a team owner, and this opportunity came to her, she was very interested in learning more. And Lucas helped them form the team. So he gave them the draft picks, how to go about the draft and all of that. So I think the passion for racing, I think, and motorsports was the crux that drove their interest into it. But I think they've all been extremely savvy as well to sort of see what the larger interests are. So each of them in the first year, on average, had about 50 lakhs to 1.5 crores in sponsorship revenue at the individual team level, which is unprecedented. I mean, we know a lot of other sports leagues where 4-5 years down the line, people haven't been able to raise that kind of sponsorship amounts. So for them to be able to do this, obviously they came with a very specific strategy on how to go about monetizing the team as well.
Yeah.
So I think very passionate set. That's the common factor. And also, given that they're all like big conglomerates, I think it helps in the networks that they build. So there's a part of that as well into the whole thing.
So you have 6 teams: Chennai,
Yes.
Delhi, Pune.
Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad.
Interesting. And I see that the Delhi team was owned by the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi.
Prince of Abu Dhabi, yes.
Okay.
Not the Crown Prince, yeah.
It says Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in one of the publications I read. But
Okay.
I mean, it's. I'm guessing that means that they're also hoping for a more global audience.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Two things. Yes, global motorsports has always had like a very inclusive audience structure. So even if there's Formula One doesn't do any marketing anywhere it goes, right? And Formula One has set with that strategy forever. I mean, they had like 3 years in India. I don't think they had even one advertisement on TV in India. It's just how Formula One is. And motorsports has its whole set of enthusiasts who will tune in and watch even like 10, 15 minutes just for the heck of it. That's just how the motorsports fans are. I think that is one of the reasons why we saw that interest, but also more importantly, the format in which we're doing it, the economic model behind the X1 Racing League hasn't been explored before in motorsports, where it is a capped ownership model and there is no R&D expenditure. So this model has made a few people very interested in owning the teams here. So someone like the Delhi team owner, obviously, they wanted to have the first dibs to also take it overseas to the Middle East and to show that interest and to show their skin in the game and put their money where their mouth is. They said, okay, we'll pick up a stake in the Indian league to show our interest in the larger play here.
Abhinandan, your co-founders are two, somewhat reputed drivers themselves in motorsport. How did you meet them? How did you guys get together? How did this come about?
So Aditya is one of my best friend's elder brother, right? So I've known him since school. So Akshay, his younger brother, and I were in the same class, same school growing up. So that's the connection. And Arman and I mean, if you know Arman, you're from Chennai. He's a social bird here. So you can't miss him anywhere. So we've known each other for quite a while. I think around 2017, late 2017, early 2018, we just the funny story is 2 weeks before Aditya reached out to me and said, hey, let's chat about an idea that we have. Just 2 weeks before that, I actually messaged Akshay saying, listen, will Aditya be interested in doing a motorsports league? And this is the biggest coincidence. I'm pretty sure Akshay, knowing him, he's not put this out to Aditya. So it was Aditya reaching out just out of the blue, and this happened. So when we initially met, the idea is, okay, is it feasible to run something like this? What will be the differentiator? And how can we set ourselves up for financial success? Because there have been people who have come in and said they want to start a motorsports league way long back. We're not the first ones to claim that we'll start a motorsports league. So obviously we are battling that stigma as well in the business community, because a lot of the big businessmen were approached for this and it didn't take off and all of that. So we had to ask ourselves, okay, how do we financially sort of set ourselves up in a way where people take us seriously? Obviously, it's not like we come from billion-dollar business houses or something like that. People know that we'll pump in the money or anything. It has to be venture backed. So I think our first set of investors were a great support. So you'll know a few of them as well, obviously.
We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm more curious about the origin, right? Like what was the first conversation? How do you guys
The first conversation was basically, is it feasible? Is it and also for me, coming from outside the motorsports world, my initial thought process was cars are going to be expensive, R&D is going to be heavy, and my first learning was that people run single make series. It's called a single make series because all the cars are the same, and it's run everywhere in the world. There are very successful organizations like the Stefan Rattle Group, which runs the Blank Paint series across the world, and we will take that model and modify it for India. And that's how it started off. And of course, a few beers later, a few drunk outings later, we decided, okay, let's definitely try this out. Initially, it was very, very top level discussions with the federation to see the feasibility of something like this, with a few prospective team owners and sponsors. What we knew was India had a few promoter groups that were investing heavily in motorsports. Right? You talk about your JK Tires, you talk about your MRF. Right? These guys spend a lot of money in motorsports anyway, and they don't see any stakeholder returns on it. It's just it's a promoter show.
Marketing expense.
Exactly. Whereas what we thought of was, given the interest and people who are spending already, let's create an ecosystem. Let's create a platform where they cannot put their money into one single neutral platform, and that becomes the home for motorsports in India. And that's literally how it was born.
I'm curious because in your promoter group, I don't see an MRF. I don't see the Mamans. I don't see. Was that by design, or they were not excited?
I think the stigma attached with previous failures in motorsports, and this goes so far as back to the Formula One itself, which obviously had to stop in India for various reasons, besides the actual sport itself. I think all of that played a huge part in some of the core suppliers in the industry, stakeholders in the automotive motorsports industry staying away from it initially. They wanted to see how are these three boys going to go about it, right? There's also a fourth co-founder who we'll definitely have to address, which is Jay Pawar. But the four of us, so they wanted to see how far we go ahead by ourselves to then later come in and say, okay, here's our support in this. And that's what JK Tires was, right? JK Tires was our powered by sponsor last year. And that was pretty much the journey with them as well. They wanted to see, okay, these guys are talking big game. Let's see where these guys actually go to. Do they have the financial backing? Do they have the team owners? Because without team owners, you can't run this. Without a broadcaster, you can't be different from anyone else. And without the interest from non-endemic brands, which are not in motorsports or the automotive industry, you're not talking to anyone new, or this is not going to become bigger than what it is already. So they wanted to see all of that before jumping in, and that's what happened along the way as well.
So does that mean you're going to open it up to more teams in the near future?
So we've already got an inquiry for 2 more new teams after the first year. We want to take it slow in adding new teams because the economic model of the league itself works where the league shares its revenue with the teams, right? So the more teams there are, the lesser of the pie that each team gets. And the model in which we have done the whole staggering of payouts to the league from the team owners, we've done it in a certain way where there's a minimum amount that the team can expect every year from the league side. So because of that, we've been very cautious in saying, okay, when can we add the next set of teams? We're probably looking at it in the third year, not now. Although the interest is right now, we would take the risk of not addressing it or taking that discussion forward. We would want to only explore it in 2021, 2022.
You've already gone through one cycle of doing this. What are the key learnings from that? I know there were a lot of really popular, at least Formula One drivers who've had an interesting legacy, right? You have Niki Lauda's son, James Hunt, I guess the famous rivalry, between their fathers, I guess. What was the learning from there, and what was like the highlights?
I think a lot of them liked the whole experience that they had in the first year. Now, very important is there's a certain perception about India that is always built for whatever reason, right? I think our people are the most hospitable, but yet even then, like there's that perception that we always tackle. Things are always delayed. It's never on time. It's so disorganized. But again, building something so big and also with a very startup-y process is going to have a little bit of chaos. But I think they enjoyed the overall experience, and that really helped in reaching out to the other people within the motorsports world. Our intention was to sort of bring in a mix of drivers who, one, make the league competitive. We don't want just people who have a big brand name. They also have to, the sport itself has to be competitive for TV viewers and spectators. Right? We have to have close races for people to actually fall in love with it. That is a big criteria in choosing the drivers who are in the draft. And also going forward, we also want to open up a stream where young Indian drivers, Indian female drivers also get a chance to compete with the current set of drivers. So I think that was the thought process behind the kind of drivers we selected for the draft. And the team owners had their own strategy over and above that, after which the final set were selected.
So there was your own version of Rush, the movie.
No, we wanted our own version of Rush. It didn't happen.
You guys put it in motion, but it didn't really play out.
Yeah, we tried to put it in motion. We tried to sort of nudge them here and there, saying, hey, we can do a Rush 2.0. No, the team owners had their own strategy. So, yeah.
So in the current generation, there's I would call it the Uber and Ola generation. While gaming is taking off, are you looking to transition esports aspects to motorsport?
Yes.
Is that part of X1?
Interestingly, motorsport is the only sport where you can be playing on your PlayStation today and probably race against Formula One drivers in real racing in the future. It's like flight simulation, so it really sort of simulates the real world into the game. And the the simple fundamentals behind this is your principles and ideologies of racing are same whether it's a real car or it's a game, right? And because of which you're able to transition from being a simulator racer to an actual racer. Of course, there are physical training that you have to undergo and all of that, which is like every other athlete in every other sport. But that is one of the major reasons why we went into esports, and we saw a huge number of people which participated in our sim racing activations that we did across 6 cities, across colleges, malls, tech parks. Some of the biggest, we had a partnership with the Phoenix market cities in some of the major cities, and it was fabulous. We had close to about 30,000 people participate in this, and it was very interesting. We had mothers and sometimes even the local police guys who are walking around the mall to just come and try this out, because we had these very interesting quirky arcade setups right in each of these malls in the open, right bang in the middle of the mall. You'll just have this very all these simulators set up, and it'll be very interesting. So we had a lot of participation, so that really sort of helped in the marketing of X1 Racing, the league as well.
So when you say simulator, because now we're talking about not necessarily using your phone to drive, but you're not actually on the track, but kind of using the arcade kind of setup inside of a space, but you have the same experience as driving. I think I've seen one of these rigs. I was looking at some of the pictures from so it's kind of like a custom kind of design.
It's like a seat. It's basically essentially a seat that gives you a feel of sitting in a race car. That's about it.
So it's like me going to
sit down
a 4D movie, right?
Kind of.
Now, so does it have the exact same dynamics of racing, like in terms of
you get real feedback. So when you brake or how you brake and your racing lines, all of that are pretty much simulated like the real life driving experience, and you get real feedback from the car when you do the sim racing. But obviously you won't experience the downforce, g-force that is there in the real physical world, right? So obviously that you can't expect. There are gaming rigs that also simulate that. They are too expensive. So we've built these custom made in Bangalore at very at 1/10 the cost of the foreign international ones. So we built we're a startup. Although it's motorsports and it looks like all this, we've still built a very lean model.
So from a racing standpoint, so obviously there is this aspect of esports. Typically is like, I can play from home, right? I can do PUBG from my dorm room, right? Do you mean in this case you will have to end up going to say a center where you actually sit in a rig? How does your version of esports look? I'm curious.
Sure. I mean, the only difference is, of course, anyone who has a PlayStation can play from home. The only difference is that they also need a steering wheel and pedals for this, because that's when it really you don't necessarily need the seat. You can just use any chair that you're sitting in, your normal study chair or whatever working chair. But you definitely need steering wheel and pedals, and that's an additional cost of about 16,000 rupees. So obviously the market size for that is much smaller than the guys who own PlayStation, which itself is a smaller number compared to the guys who own mobile phones and play PUBG online. So we are looking at a growing market. It's very urban. Obviously, the kind of people who play it obviously have a certain specific demographic which we notice, but you have to build a community around them to make it aspirational for others to get into it as well, because there are cheaper versions of the steering wheel and pedals. It's just that you have to create that interest for people to buy that.
Do you need to take permission from the sports council for this as well?
To do the actual motorsports racing league, yes, of course. And motorsports is one of the most regulated sports globally, given the safety aspects that we need to monitor on a very very regular basis during, before, and after the race. So yes, we are affiliated to the Federation of Motorsports Clubs of India, which is FMSCI, which is the de facto regulatory body for India in motorsports. And we have obtained the commercial rights to four-wheel motorsports in India. So that gives us some sort of a proprietary nature and creates an entry barrier to anyone else who wants to enter motorsports and commercialize four-wheel motorsports at least.
Oh, that's interesting. So then there is the IP is pretty solid. Then.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Hey guys, this is a public service message. I'd love for you to leave your email on stars.substack.com so that we can update you whenever I release a new episode. If you haven't already done so on your favorite podcast player, do subscribe so that you can stay in touch and listen to all the amazing speakers that I have on my show. Okay, back to the show.
But you've actually been associated with a very interesting league prior to X1 Racing League.
Yeah.
Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Sure. So I was part of the founding team that launched Premier Futsal in India. It was in its 2 years, it became the largest and most watched five-a-side football league in the world. We were broadcast in 110 countries, direct television to over 300 million homes across the world. And that is not just the fun part. The fun part was we had some of the biggest football superstars to ever play the game participate as players for the first time in a different format other than football. Guys like Ronaldinho, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Michel Salgado, all these guys. So it was a great journey for 2 years. Very 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 hard learnings. We grew too fast. We took a few things that should have been very very core. We thought, okay, we could address it later. And of course, even from a venture building perspective, it was a big learning curve for us because we felt and believed that a sports media business probably should have been built the way we built Premier Futsal, but that became the Achilles heel for us when we started to raise external capital, and the ownership structure created a bunch of issues for investors to come in, after which we had to stop the venture. We had to pull the plug on that one. But yeah, I think there is no better learning for me in my life than those 2 years. And of course, I had the most fun in my life ever because I was living my dream. I grew up as a football fan. I grew up as a Manchester United fan. I still am, very proudly. And for us to have guys like Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, playing with us. These guys have not played anywhere outside Manchester for their life. And they played 20 years in Manchester United.
Right.
For them to even accept to come to India and play in a league, it was unprecedented. So in 2 years, we were known world over. Just because of how disruptive it was. Just everyone in the football world knew what Premier Futsal was. I wish there was a better story than the ending, but we have to live and learn. That's pretty much it.
I mean, it's kind of sad because I think it had. If you're saying anybody who watched football knew futsal, which is an achievement in itself.
Sure.
In saying it's a league and obviously brought the star power. You're saying the ownership structure created a lot of challenges to fundraising, and that resulted in it not being able to go forward. Yeah, I mean this happens a lot in startups itself, right? You end up giving equity to a lot of different people. You have a very cluttered cap table.
No, ours wasn't a cluttered cap table. We had an anchor investor who sort of backed the whole company, and they held a significant majority in the company. And that created a lot of. That didn't have any room for institutional investors to come in and take part because they felt what was the founders' control in it, and just given the significant ownership of one group of people, they didn't want to take part given how they otherwise structured deals. So that became a huge hindrance in us being able to raise external capital. And of course, the anchor investor could only couldn't finance the project for so long, and we didn't think these things through when we started off, and that kind of became the reasons for us to sort of stop the project 2.5 years into it. We grew it from India. We did it in the Middle East. We had the biggest people from FIFA attended. Luis Figo was the president. We had Virat obviously as a brand ambassador in the first year. Yeah, it was built very strongly from a vision perspective, but of course the execution, we could have executed better. It could have been a different story altogether.
What were the major challenges that you're now addressing in your current?
I think so. The two biggest things that were the learnings from my futsal journey were the first two things we addressed at X1, right? So the first one was we should have the complete rights to what we're doing and protect our right to do this, which is why we went to the federation, acquired the rights to the commercial rights of four-wheel motorsports in the country. That gave us a solid footing to ensure that we have the complete authority to do this and the ability to commercialize and monetize the entire content and the IP around it. That is one. And the second was it's great to have someone back you and back your vision, but they can only take you to a certain stage of your journey. It needs a collective, it needs a consortium to sort of really make something like this more than what it is. It's the sum of the parts, so as to speak. And hence, instead of going to, there were people that we could have gone to in the early days and said, hey, give us the $1 million or $2 million to start this off, and they would have easily put that in and seen it as a marketing expense come investment. But instead, we went to a very different set of people and raised money from them, and they added a lot of credibility to us, and that also validated that this need not be seen as a linear business, because all these guys who are well known in the venture world, right? And obviously, people in the venture world expect non-linear returns, and so for these guys to come in and back us early on, obviously helped in establishing that sports media has a very different viewpoint of how ventures can pay out.
What I'm learning is that you also enable the sports body to create this, right? Because I'm sure they would not, they hadn't created one and waiting for somebody to come and buy it, right? As a rights. How do you approach that?
No, we had to carve it out. I mean, obviously, motorsports it's a gentleman's club out there in motorsports everywhere in the world, right? Like it is what it is. And yeah, when we went and approached them first, they didn't even understand the term commercial rights. They didn't know. They were like, "What do you mean by you want exclusivity?" Right? So we had to carve it out. We had to sort of protect our interests, our commercial IPs, and it took a while. I can tell you, we've had 10-hour, 12-hour long meetings with them. And not just with one person from there, and it'll be the whole club of people who've been there for like 20, 30 years. And then here we are, like, two drivers. Obviously, given that Aditya and Arman, both their families have been in motorsports for the longest time, that there's a little bit of leeway that was given to us in terms of even if we asked for something that was dramatic. But I had no idea about, how these relationships played out, because all these guys know each other for 30 years and they're all in the same room. And there were different opinions and all that. So it took a while to get through that. But yeah, at the end of it, I think we were very happy that we were able to obtain the commercial rights.
Because why I bring that up is, I think even from a venture world, when you're looking at exponential growth and creating the moat, I think you probably ticked a lot of boxes, right? And to your point, you have the investors on one hand, and then you have, of course, everybody else taking you seriously because of them as well, right? So, it kind of worked out well. So, did you approach investors after carving out this piece, and that's how you could bring on board all these amazing investors, angel investors they brought on board?
No, interesting story there as well. So, so a few of them actually are, except for Jitain, who participated in the very, very early round. All the others who participated are friends of ours who know us for a long time. There's an underlying relationship and trust that is already established. So we went to them with so when Aditya Arman and I decided, okay, let's do this. And the first thing we asked ourselves, okay, and given my past experience with futsal, I wanted to ensure that we had someone by our side who brings in a lot of clout, right? And also has to be passionate about it, because that's the only way you can keep them interested in the business. And I've known Jay for a while, and I asked Jay about this, and his first thing when I told him this was, make sure you don't do this with anyone else. It should only be with me, right? So, because he's mad passionate about motorsports, he's got the fanciest supercars, all that, and he comes with the clout. He comes with the relationships with the 1% of the world, which is important in a business like this, because you sell to that 1% essentially. And hence, there was no better partner for us to bring on board, and the four of us decided that this should be enough for us to go at least get some feedback on, okay, is this something that people will back, or should we sort of put in some money from our end and start the whole thing out. And when we went to these guys, we met. Utsav was the first one. Rohit Chokani of White Unicorn, I think the conversation will still be on my phone. It was a WhatsApp text saying, hey, I'm doing this, will you be interested? And he said, count me in for the first round. And literally that was that, right? So what was interesting for all these guys was, like you said, it took the competitive advantage of having the two race drivers as part of the founding team. So the technical know-how, the relationships in the industry, all of that was covered. Given that Aditya Arman also are brand ambassadors of very big brands like Lamborghini and Audi, that helped in establishing that credibility as well. Having someone like Jay adds that clout, adds that business powerhouse at our end, and given my experience with futsal, they knew that I'm going to ensure that none of the mistakes that were committed in launching a sports media business will be done here as well. So I think given these three, things were covered, and the fact that they knew that we'll get that motorsports federation will convince them. They knew that we'll convince the motorsports federation. I think that was enough for these guys to take the first gamble on us. And this was very, very early on. We were an idea on paper. When I see that deck today, it's a joke. You'll wonder how people raise money with that deck. And it is a very small round. It took us, it gave us a 12-month runway to hire a few people and all of that. But that's about it. The larger round, we did the second round very 6 months into raising the first round, we did the second round, and all of these guys followed on, which was great for us. And then we had Let's Venture, we had Raghunandan, we had Mohit Barman, who owns Kings 11 Punjab, promoter of Dabur. So these guys participated in the second round, which is almost also an angel round.
With these guys on board, I think like there's obviously they're angels, looks like, and it's patient capital. They don't need the money tomorrow, and unlike a lot of funds, they also don't need to have to answer to LPs in 6 to 7 years on an exit. So with COVID here, I'm guessing somewhat the studies probably changed, because having events, because I know that at least from the journey, you're probably trying to make this a gala event, right? A lot of these were supposed to be properties in itself, and that's one of the ways to monetize, right? To have these events, and F&B is a great line item in that.
Yeah.
How are you looking at the future now?
COVID obviously brings its set of challenges. Obviously, we can't have large gatherings, or people will have reservations of getting into large crowds going forward. But it also creates a window of opportunities for us. So digital activation, digital fan engagement becomes a very, very key driver for our success. We are looking at, for this year, for instance, we are looking at options where people can vote for drivers while they're driving, and that can give them some sort of an advantage in the actual race itself. So that, engaging fans like that. We're also exploring a format where the drivers and the sim racers, the esports drivers, they race, the esports drivers race from home, and these guys race at the real tracks simultaneously. Right, so it makes for very interesting opportunities that will come. But yes, there will be a short term impact. I mean, we are writing off this year and next year in terms of crowd gathering, right? But I think people will come back to sports. I think one thing that this whole lockdown has shown is that people love sports, people want sports. I think when things come back normal, whatever that will be, I think people will start going back to sports events. I think, yeah, this year, next year, maybe not, but 2022 onwards, I think you'll have a larger influx of people probably attending events.
Now that you've been involved in sports for so long, do you play any sport?
I no, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie and tell you I play any sport. I play a lot of esport though. I am a very active gamer, but very very specific games that I play.
What's your go-to?
Sports-based games, so FIFA, NBA, Madden, NHL. So any sports games, UFC, any sports-based game, I'm in. That's my first port of call because I love sports in general. I know the rules, I know the tactics. So even though it's a learning in each game, because I know the fundamentals and the tactics, I feel like I have an edge in terms of the learning curve. Those, and then on mobile, obviously, like your PUBG and Asphalt racing, all these. So I'm an active gamer for sure. Sports itself, yeah, it's been a while since I've done anything, yeah, physically.
There's not that much more needs to be done on the ground, or will you need like a large team to execute on a plan like this?
So obviously we have plans to scale, which means that we'll have a larger team, which will be required as we grow. This is not just an India story here. We've already done one-off events outside of India, and the idea is to take X1 Racing League to the Middle East, to Southeast, which are much larger markets for motorsports and hotbeds of motorsports, and there's a culture for racing in these areas, in these regions, and hence we are looking to expand the team right now. But from an event perspective, operational perspective, yes, a lot of the people that work with us are on a contract basis for those 3 months. But the larger team, which the full-time team that is there with us throughout the year, it's a very lean structure that way.
So if somebody wanted to join you guys, and they also love sport and love tapping away on their joysticks, where should they reach out?
Yeah, we're all on LinkedIn, so that's
what
the
are you looking
easiest
for?
place to reach.
What are you looking
So
for?
I mean, right now, we're looking for senior people. Honestly, we are looking for like senior people that can add a lot of impact in the growth of the business, specifically on the esports vertical. Given that esports is a new vertical and we're scaling it up so fast, that's also a very very key focus area for the business. So we are actively looking to hire people for the esports division. Guys who've previously organized online tournaments, who've run massive multiplayer gaming tournaments, and we've been talking to a few people. And also, not just India, the focus is the Middle East and Southeast Asia as well, because that's the growth story for the venture itself.
Brilliant, man. Any parting words for our audience?
I think for sure they should tune into the X1 Racing official YouTube channel. They should check out the races. I think that will get people interested in what we're building. I think it's a very unique format of something that has been there for ages, which is motorsports. I think that's how we have gotten a very new set of audiences into motorsports. Our reach last year was 200 million across TV, radio, digital, all of that. Yeah.
This is X1 alone.
This was X1 alone, yes. And we've seen a huge spike. So we do about 500,000 viewers every week on our esports tournaments. So again, we distribute across multiple platforms on YouTube, on Instagram, go live on Facebook, across various pages and all that. And the more people sort of see it, I think it will make them become fans of what we're building out here. And for the esports, they have to follow us on Ultimate E. That is our esports platform. It's called the Ultimate E League. So that's our esports platform. So they should follow us on social media, and anyone who's interested, who thinks this is an area of interest for them, they're passionate about sports media in general, I think they can just reach out to us directly on LinkedIn.
Hey man, listen, we're living in the age of digital, and this is I would say, entertainment is super important. I think to a lot of people, I think they're starting to, I think there's different passion that was there earlier, and now there's a renewed passion for wanting to do things outside of work, outside of their lives, and get that entertainment. And I think we're seeing this around the world, including IPL, right? Like the way that IPL is taken off. It's a kind of a break. It's not a movie. It's not a it's a time that they get to spend outside of their daily lives, and there's something to cheer for, etc. Wish you guys all the luck. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll do a catch up episode in the near future when the next
100%.
Yeah,
and probably you should get start distributing tickets on your podcast to our events as well.
Well, I'll
create actually start coming to events.
Well, I'll hold that to you. So we'll have giveaway at some point when
100%
events open up. Thanks, Abhi. Great chatting.
Thanks, Varun.
Take care.
Likewise.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to subscribe and share the episode with your friends and those who you think may like the episodes. And if you haven't already done so, go to stars.substack.com and leave your email so that I can update you every time we release a new episode. Okay, stay safe.